Yo, 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 what up? Welcome to a little something new we're going to try out this fall. Pilot episode of what we're going to call college football's last call. Goal is try to get together once a week, discuss the world of college football with my boys, Sports and Torts podcast veterans, Jason Gans, Laurence Kessler. I'm sure we'll have some other friends stop by throughout the fall as well. And we don't really know what we're doing, but I guess we can just make it up as we go, try to have some fun with it. Boys, what do you think?
Hey, Josh.
Hey, good to see you again, guys. Excited to see where this goes. This will be fun.
I mean, I think it makes
sense.
What
a week one it was, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. We talk about this stuff anyway, all week long, right? So might as well hit record and let Sports and Torts have a little offshoot with last call, right?
The dirty stepbrother.
The dirty stepbrother. So look, I mean, the slate is clean. What do you guys want to talk about? What y'all think and what kind of format we want to do?
Well, I think the Dogs exceeded everybody's expectations. You've had that Facebook post on Saturday, Josh, to get people to predict the score. And usually there's going to be one person that throws out the, 50-0, 50 burger to nothing game, trying to, do their best the Bears impersonation. But this was as big of an ass kicking as I've seen in a long time for two, almost top 10 teams.
For sure. No one could even predict the score high enough. The winning score was 45-13, I think, which is crazy that wasn't even enough.
Well, logic just tells you that 49-3 is an outlier. It's an anomaly. But is it? I don't know. As we talked about last week, the identity of this Dogs team is a high-powered, high-octane offense that we haven't seen in probably the last year that we had a comparable offense was probably 2013 with Aaron Murray, his senior year when we were slinging it all over the field. But this is total 180 from Kirby's identity, and props to him. Props for adjusting his offense around his personnel rather than making his personnel play to his offense.
It almost reminded me of when Nick Saban decided to kind of change his MO and start to just throw it around and move fast and say, I'm going to come up with the times. That's what I felt I was watching on Saturday.
So you're saying Stetson Bennett is the next Tua Tagovailoa, huh?
I mean, yeah.
What?
I mean, in the college game, what more could you want from a quarterback?
It would probably get.
I mean, he basically pitched a perfect game. He had 3 incomplete passes in the first half, 2 were throwaways, and I believe the third was
a massive hold on Ladd McConkey, and they should have thrown the flag. But, I saw something today this afternoon as I was just kind of messing around, and it was the director of pro personnel from the Senior Bowl saying Stetson Bennett is a legitimate NFL prospect, right?
Hey, don't say that out loud, man. You're going to give some people a heart attack.
Pump the brakes, dude. Pump the brakes. Let's just enjoy him as a 25-year-old college quarterback.
Let's just enjoy him as Van Wilder,
so
okay?
He put out a tweet, and he showed the play. It was a massively clean pocket where Sted hung in there for probably 5 or 6 seconds. He ended up taking a massive hit, and I'm pretty sure it was a comebacker to A.D. Mitchell. And it was like a 27-yard rope that he threw.
Yep. And Justin Flo hit him hit him late, got the personal foul.
That was an NFL throw. And that's what this guy was saying. He's like, enough with the feel-good story, the old walk on the mailman, this and that. This guy can play, and it sure looked like it on Saturday.
He was having fun.
I tell you, they were hyping up those the Oregon inside linebackers, Flo and Sewell, saying they were the best duo. And that Georgia offense, Stetson Bennett picked them apart. We have, as you mentioned, Gans, we got so many weapons, whether it's Kenny McIntosh, Bowers, Darnell Washington, Ladd McConkey, A.D. Mitchell, Kyrus Jackson, Dejon Edwards got in the mix. Kendall Milton had 2 touchdowns. The bench doesn't end.
We talked about it last week on Sports and Torts, but we joked around about Ladd McConkey. That guy's a stud, man.
He's legit.
He may score 20 touchdowns.
He could have had 3 touchdowns easily.
Yeah.
And he's always open, runs crisp routes, and just finds a way to get in the end zone. It's awesome.
The biggest problem he's going to have is feeding everybody. That's just going to be, that's.
Yeah, but you know what? You say that, but look at the touchdown celebrations and how much these guys were supporting each other. I mean, they were having a ball. And the other thing that goes unnoticed is the dirty things that these guys do. The blocking from the wide receivers and tight ends downfield on that end around on the first touchdown. Brock Bowers just cleaned house on, I believe it was Kenny McIntosh's touchdown from the 2-yard line. Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint, and Brock Bowers just sealed the end. Like you can tell Kirby's got these guys bought into the team effort. I don't think there's like a selfish guy on the team.
Yeah, you mentioned
that guy's playing and catching footballs for Alabama now.
Yeah, you mentioned feeding everybody. I always like to look at the box score and just kind of see who caught what and carries. And I mean, I'm sure y'all have seen this too, but our leading rusher in terms of carries, you know what the number was?
I do. 8 of 50 for Kendall Milton.
8.
Yeah.
8 carries, and the next one was like 5.
But he scored 2.
When's the last time a Georgia team had that sort of ball distribution?
Well, part of it was the game plan, right? They wanted to stay away from Justin Flo and Noah Sewell, right? So you got 2 massive NFL linebackers that are going to jam the A and B gaps, right? So you're going to want to kick it outside. So a little of that was game plan. But yeah, I agree. I know what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. And it's more testament to Todd Monken playing to his strengths, evolving the offense, and not just saying, hey, you know what? We're Georgia identity is to run it up your ass. We're going to change this up because we've got the playmakers and we know how to beat you.
But what it seemed to me is they were basically getting the carries in space outside, right? Like McIntosh, how many catches did he have that were almost like –
I think he had 9 for 115 in a touchdown.
And so those are replacing the traditional, handoff at the middles that we'd see, but still getting the ball in their hands.
Yeah, some of those receptions that Kenny Mack had. And by the way, I mean, we talked about this again to go back and toot our own horn here a bit. I think we all predicted Kenny McIntosh to have this sort of season. As I think I said last time, he's James Cook, but he's 3 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier. A lot of the swing passes they threw to him are effectively runs, right? But you get him out in space already, so they're 2-3 yards. He had, I think Larry said, he had 115 yards. I saw a stat, it was like 105 yards after catch. I mean,
right.
Yeah. The other thing you said, he reminds you of James Cook, but bigger. He had a move on one. I don't know if it was a run out wide or one of those swing passes, but he did one of those like dead leg runs that was very reminiscent of DeAndre Swift, where he just faked the dude out of his shoes, faked right, cut left, and just burst downfield.
Well, Gans, let me ask you this. You were the only one of the 3 of us that went to the game. Laurence was at a soccer tournament in Florida. I was at a football game with Graham. So, I mean, on TV, loud as I can ever hear it on TV, the distribution of Georgia fans was crazy. But,
yeah,
I mean, walk us through kind of the environment, the tailgate going in and how the game went.
Sure. So I was fortunate enough to find my miracle. For those keeping track at home, they were acceptable seats. I ended up pretty lucky. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get down there too early. I did have a few friends that had nice tailgates, but because of child responsibilities, we walked in about 3. It was about 85% dogs. There's probably 10,000 Duck fans, which, pretty good showing. We talked to a few real good sports, but to your point, Josh, I've never heard the Benz like that. It was a serious home field advantage. I think we had 3 false starts on the Ducks in significant situations, right, where we set them back 5 yards. And that was purely based off the crowd noise. It was awesome, man. It was just an awesome environment.
Did you have to mule any bourbon in your belt loops?
I didn't. They were selling beer. The beer was flowing like the salmons of Capistrano. So that was great. They did run out of Miller Lite right away, so I had to audible Bud Light, which was tough. But I did end up in the club level where they had a nice liquor bar. So that was a nice upgrade.
Mercedes-Benz does a good job at that club level with the food and booze distribution. Sure. I'm just glad you didn't have to get asked to leave because you had a 6-pack of Jim Beam airplane bottle stuff.
Not this time. I'm getting older and wiser.
Were the Oregon fans just kind of happy to be in Atlanta and seeing the venue and the atmosphere? Or are they like, holy shit, we just got our asses blown out?
Yeah, we talked to a bunch of them, and the ones I talked to had all really traveled across the country. And I think
they had traveled across the country.
What's that?
They did. They came. I mean, these are people that are coming all the way from Oregon.
Yeah, what they said, and it makes sense, is like it's a direct flight if you're coming from Portland or, I guess Eugene, you got to connect. But you're flying right to Atlanta. It's 15 minutes away. Atlanta's a convention city. People, we don't go down to downtown Atlanta per se very often because it is pretty touristy, but supposedly it's pretty fun to spend a weekend there, right? And so these guys that I talked to in particular are having a blast. I think their expectations were pretty low with a new coach and a new quarterback who I think we should actually stop for a second and thank the good Lord for Bo Nix, because what a great he's been. I'm sad to see him go. Hopefully he takes a 6th year somewhere. We play him in an opener next year because he's a Georgia.
He joins the elite status of Reggie Ball into the UGA Ring of Circle.
I knew,
and I think was it Sean said he should be renamed as Bo Picks, which I'm pretty sure he plagiarized from the dog vent, but we'll take it from there.
What a great list. Bo Nix and Reggie Ball, 0-4 against Georgia in their
in disastrous fashions too. I mean, I'm going to miss Bo Nix. In fact, now that Stet might have a future NFL career, there might be an insurance spot for Bo Nix in the city of Atlanta. That guy could go sling some insurance to Georgia fans, and he's going to make a hell of
my Bo Nix probably has more eligibility, right? They just hand these years out like, Pez candy.
Yeah, I think I texted y'all the other day. Stetson Bennett's going to be 25 in October. That's not a lot.
I can't believe – when you said that, I couldn't believe it.
I slightly overstated it last week on the podcast on Sports and Torts. I said he was like 72. But he is, in fact, Van Wilder.
Yeah, he's 25.
So Larry.
You should start calling him Dr. Bennett.
Yeah. So Larry, the Eugene Free Press, or their version of their newspaper, what are they saying about Dan Lanning right now?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I think that they are questioning that hire right now. It was not a good debut for Coach Lanning, unfortunately. I think – us as Georgia fans, I think we're all pulling for him. He did a great job during his time in Athens. Seems to be a good guy, good family, great recruiter. But if I'm an Oregon fan, I'm curious, did I just not have the guys prepared? But also knowing, like, when you listen to the broadcast on TV, I think Oregon has something like 22 transfers. Yeah. So I think you got to be – if you're an Oregon Free Press, you got to be patient. He's got to build something there. Cristobal, while he was a good recruiter and had a good foundation, a lot of those folks left. And Dan Lanning came in. He had to basically put a team together through free agency. So I think you got to be patient with him. But, man, that was not a good debut for our man, Dan Lanning.
Tough to get out of the gate as defending champion in Atlanta, which is effectively a home game, 2,500 miles away. So I don't think – look.
I imagine they give him a pass.
Yeah.
I mean, you just look down that roster and – I mean, it was not a contest. What they say.
I think more importantly, everybody in the country is scared of Georgia right now. Like, we looked freaking
Look at our
good.
last three.
That was my next question is talk about
and we made a lot of mistakes on defense too. We didn't even start talking about the defense. I mean, obviously only gave up 3 points, but they gave up some big plays, but they stopped Oregon when needed. They created a few turnovers. We had 0 sacks. I don't know if kind of lack of pressure was part of the game plan to keep Bo Nix contained. But our team looks really, really scary to the rest of the country.
We gave up 0. We gave up 0 sacks. There was not 1 sack in the game.
That's right. Offensive line studs.
As you look down the line of the schedule, I know it's impossible to kind of see how things play out, but I mean, the next 11 games, where do you see the potential for the Georgia team that we just saw on Saturday slipping up? I mean, I know the last week you talked about South Carolina was scaring you and all this other crap, but as we watch them play, I mean, good God, it looks like 12-0. Head to Atlanta.
I mean, 2 of us called 12-0. There's one doomsdayer on here. We won't point his name out. Nice beard.
I don't know, guys. We have Samford this weekend, and that's who I'm focused on. Let's get past them, and then we can start talking about what commander what was the commander, the Cox commander in Columbia.
Speaking of Mr. Papa Grande Doomsdayer, Ohio State was his big sexy pick. Did any of y'all get a chance to watch their game versus Notre Dame?
I did. So I was posted up at the Westin Sarasota bar. I had Ohio State, Notre Dame on one TV, and I had the silly Gators on the other TV with a obnoxious Florida fan chirping in my ear. Needless to say, I was disappointed in the ending of both games. Ohio State's offense, wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. They gave up 10 points, which for Ohio State, I think is probably the best they've done in many, many years. So the question I pose to my Ohio State friends is, does Ohio State actually have a defense, or does Notre Dame stink? And I'm trending towards the last. I'm trending towards the
Notre Dame is much like Oregon, right? They got left high and dry by their coach, right? They're, I don't know a ton about Notre Dame, but it's tough. Anytime I know he was a coach within the staff that they did promote, but it's tough whenever you've got a new coach. So, fun fact though, in terms of our upcoming game this weekend, Samford is coached by Chris Hatcher. Right? You guys remember Chris Hatcher?
Mm-hmm.
He was at Kentucky. Can you name two coaches that were on Chris Hatcher's coaching staff?
Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp.
That's right, at Valdosta State.
At Valdosta State, the Blazers.
Yeah, Kirby and Will Muschamp worked for Chris Hatcher. So 2 weeks in a row, there's some familiarity with the opposing coach. And then, of course, the third week, we go up against Agent Beamer, right? So 3 weeks in a row, we're going up against Kirby's got really close, relations with the coaches this first 3 weeks.
Did y'all see that video? I know you did. A couple weeks ago with Muschamp just losing his mind on that chalkboard.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, how's that guy's ticker still beating?
They don't call him Coach Boom for nothing. He is intense.
He needs to stay at the defensive coordinator position. Like, he doesn't need to be running a program, but
he's a great defensive coordinator.
He's a great DC, and thank God we have him.
And he's a great asset. Like, look at Kirby's coaching staff. And I know we're going a little off topic here, but you obviously have Kirby, right? You've got Muschamp, right? You've got Mike Bobo as an analyst. You've got, what's his name? Is it Buster Faulkner, who's another analyst that we have, who is, I believe, a head coach.
Munkin.
Brian McClendon's been an interim head coach twice. So
Heinz Ward,
interim Brian.
Squad. Remember, they were trying to get hired.
I mean, so you've got a lot of head coaching experience there.
Well, Kirby said in the post-game press conference, this is his best.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if he was throwing shade at Lanning there, or which I would have.
He also threw a flyer out there. He's always recruiting, right? Kirby sales pitch. He said, "How can you watch a game like this and not want to come be part of this offense?" So Kirby's still selling. He's selling the word.
So Larry, you mentioned the Gators too versus Utah. They make a statement. AR-15.
So I think that Utah totally choked that game away. I think, I think Florida's going to get a lot of undue hype after that. Anthony Richardson, he's good. I don't think there's much around him. Utah should have won that game by 2 touchdowns. They blew that game. That pass at the end of the game was just a terrible decision by their quarterback. Threw it into double coverage, where actually the only person that could have caught it was a Florida Gator, when they could have just played for the field goal, right? They were down 3. There was no need to do that. Utah blew that game. I'm not impressed by Florida. I still think we probably beat them by 17 to 21.
It'll be interesting. They play Kentucky this week, and the Gators are actually a 4.5-point favorite against Kentucky, which everyone loves Kentucky right now too. So I'll be interested to see what comes of that game this weekend. And Pitt versus.
So I was just when we were texting during the Kentucky, the Florida Utah game. I know all y'all were rooting for Utah, which is always fun to see Florida lose, but I thought it was better to knock Utah out of there. Get them a loss. Don't let them backdoor in as, the number 4 team if we need some help at the end. So what do we care that Florida won? Let them pump them up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the SEC effectively ruined the Pac-12's chances at the playoffs outside of USC by 10 o'clock on Saturday night. It's crazy.
Yeah, packed in.
And we at Notre Dame, but I'm kind of happy to see Notre Dame take an L already, because sometimes they'll sneak through that season and then you end up with them in and they lose by 40 in a playoff game, and no one's happy.
Totally. Same thing. I mean, Ohio State, they could have lost, and same thing. They'd have snuck in, and if they won the Big Ten, it would come down to Michigan probably again, and they're still get in. So I don't think it really matters.
It doesn't.
And then LSU, FSU, y'all catch the end of that game?
Yeah, I saw the game. I was watching it with my daughter Sunday night. LSU comes down, they score. I said, all right, we're going overtime. I went to get another beer, walked down the hall, grabbed the beer, came back, the game was over. And I said, what the hell happened? And my daughter tried to explain it to me, and I just figured she didn't know what she was talking about. And then, sure enough.
I'll tell you what, though. We always used to bang on whether it was Mark Richt or Kirby for terrible coaching decisions and mismanaging games and abusing timeouts. The end of that game was a colossal cluster from the fumbled punt. Yeah, the fumbled punt to the toss sweep that FSU fumbled that gave the ball back to LSU for a 99-yard drive, to then the runner being ruled down at the 1, so they had to start the clock on the whistle with 1 second left, but Florida State called a timeout. to give him a free play, and then the missed extra point. I mean, Brian Kelly. There's some. Dan Laney's going to get a little bit of grace. Brian Kelly is going to be he's going to be feet to the fire real quick in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, they don't have a long tolerance for incompetence.
No, not at all. And then we finished the weekend off Clemson, Georgia Tech, which I watched a good amount of that last night. Clemson, we talked about last week, getting into our top 4, I guess, because of process elimination, but I was not impressed by them either.
No, but you know what? The rest of the ACC looked like garbage too. And, you look at the schedule, and it's who are they going to lose to, right? NC State, they look like crap. UNC is terrible. Who's going to beat them? Wake Forest? I don't know. I didn't see anything that they did.
Yeah, Pitt probably should have lost to West Virginia if that ball didn't slip through that receiver's hands on the pick
right. But what's
six.
going to be fun though, watching up in Clemson is they got a little quarterback controversy on their hands already. DJU is hot garbage, and they got that kid Cade Klabinick or whatever coming behind him, who they all like. So that's going to be fun to see that play out. They're not as good as they've been, Clemson. I agree with you.
Well, the Clemson fans who I spoke to today are very bearish. Isn't that the right word,
Yeah.
Jason?
Yep.
Not bullish about it. They see 3 losses somewhere on the board. They're just like, this is not going to.
I understand.
So they would know better than we would.
But I get what they're saying, and I can see that too. But who are going to be the 3 losses? Maybe Notre Dame. They got to go play at Notre Dame in, I think, November. So that could be one. But I just don't see 3 because I think the ACC sucks.
Well, yeah, but they're going to beat each other up because it's a land of mediocrity. I mean, UNC almost lost to App State, and then NC State should have lost to East Carolina.
Yeah. So,
well, I'll expand on that. I mean, you just said correctly, Laurence. The Pac-12 is dead. You just said, Gans, the ACC sucks. We discussed last week, the top of the SEC, and then it kind of falls off from there. So, I mean, what's going on in the country? I mean, is it Alabama, Georgia, and then everybody else?
Yeah. And so I'm going to build off that a little bit. I'm going to take a contrarian point real quick because I think it's really topical with the playoff expansion that was announced last week to 12 teams. And you said, Josh, that, where we're going to find 12 teams to compete. But I actually think if you look at the landscape now, like literally when the season starts, there's 2 teams that are pretty much a lock for the playoff, and maybe 5 teams that have a chance to get in at all. And I think maybe if you expand the playoffs, it allows coaches and schools to have a better recruiting platform where maybe we can get a little bit more parity in college football. I mean, I don't know if the NIL is going to help long term. Like, does it give a shot to the Mets of college football now? But I think that the expansion, it's going to be good because there's going to be playoff games that are going to be on campus. It's going to allow schools to highlight the fact that they made the playoffs. There's going to be a Cinderella story that makes a run into the Final Four and then gets smoked by, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, or whoever it may be. But I'm all for the playoff expansion. I think it's going to be good television, even though it may kill the conference championship games.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Jason?
Oh, that'd be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, I'd be shocked this year if it's not Georgia. We talked about this before. If it's not Georgia, Alabama, pick someone from the Big Ten. Probably Ohio State, but maybe Michigan. I mean, and then, where do you get your 4th? All right. I mean, nobody loves Clemson. Does USC sneak in? Does an Oklahoma or Texas, I suspect, gets absolutely yoked this weekend. So, I don't even know where the 4th comes, right? So how we're getting
Yeah.
Dan Mullen today had his updated playoff projections. You know what they were? Did you see it? Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, so I hear what you're saying, Laurence, about the 12-team expansion. And trust me, when it's 2 versus 11 in Athens, we're going to go and have a freaking amazing time. So I get it. But watching the number 3 team in the country, granted it is preseason rankings, play the 11 team and win in the manner that they did, like, are we looking for a whole host of those kind of really uncompetitive games just for the sake of having them?
The semifinals historically have been blowouts anyway.
Agreed. So why make 2 more rounds of those blowouts? I guess is my question. But
it's all about the money, baby.
Benjamins, right? And they want more games. And like we've said, I mean, getting it on campus is awesome. More good games to go to in Athens, I'm for. So I guess for those reasons, I guess I'm in.
Yeah, it's going to end up with 4 SEC schools. You'll end up with like 3 Big Ten schools, and then you'll just throw some others. Notre Dame will be in every year. It'll be some sort of smattering of everybody else. A couple, USC.
You see, BYU will be in there.
Listen, like with we talked about this a little bit last week, but with Lincoln Riley, in California, there's no reason that program shouldn't be good. I mean, they've got money for NIL, they've got they've got recruiting there, and they've got a soft Pac-12, so they should be good. I don't know if it'll be this year, but I suspect that he'll turn that program into a perennial top 10, so they'll be in there every year as well. They play Stanford.
Larry, how'd your gambling do this weekend?
So I've kind of limited my game by game gambling. I do a pool that has like 105 entries. You pick against the spread about 30 games. First week obviously is all college. Second week is half college, half NFL. I had a pretty good week. I was very happy with nailing the Georgia game as my sucker bet of the week. But I had my sure thing, and I did not go with Georgia. I picked Illinois on Friday night as my sure thing +3, and that's a game that they should have won by a touchdown, and they pushed.
That
Indiana.
Sounds a little like how are you coming up with? Are you following some guy on Twitter that like good text there?
It was a bad decision. I was down between Georgia, Alabama, and then this Indiana game because there was a big line movement. My line held solid at +3. I think it was like a pick 'em by kickoff. So I felt good about it, but it was a push. I was unhappy with that. Which brings me to my sucker bet of this week, Gans. You're going to love this one. I'm going to take Texas plus the
20.
points.
I'll take that.
Yeah. All right, explain why. There's got to be a rationale.
Because everybody thinks Bama's going to beat them by 40.
I'll take the other side of that. Well, you and I put a little friendly with they are going to. So
it's my sucker bet. Go against the public pick of the week.
They are playing. And I used to know all the conference TV affiliations, and they've changed significantly over the past couple of years. And now, people are moving conferences, so I don't know them as well as I used to anymore. But they've got the big noon kickoff on Fox, which is 11 a.m. Central Time, which could not be worse for Texas, right? You've got Alabama coming in town. You want that as a night game. You want the students liquored up. You want Darrell rocking. Not going to happen. Bama's going to walk in. It's a business trip. They're going to smoke them. In fact, like you and I might get in the second half. There's going to be players you've never heard of in the second half.
Yeah, like 20. Like the line should be way more than 20. No.
Yeah, I don't know where. Well, I mean, but I guess you could look.
What is it? What is it currently?
20 the last time you could look back and say the Georgia-Oregon line should have been way more than 16.5 or 7. I don't think that Texas has a chance of keeping this thing close.
And that's why Texas is my sucker play of the week.
So I was for some reason when I heard those two teams matching up, I immediately went back to, I guess it was like 2009 or 10 or 11 when they played for the national championship. That was when Colt McCoy was the quarterback.
Colt McCoy got knocked out first play of the game.
And Bama blew the door. But think about in the last decade since then, the trajectories of those two schools.
Yes.
Right? I mean, Alabama's in a whole other world. And Texas has just been in the can.
So there's no reason Texas shouldn't be good, right? It's the flagship university. With all due respect to the Mets of college football, it's the flagship university of the state of Texas, which is one of the biggest, high school and college and professional football states there is. And I've asked people this in Texas. I go to Texas often. What the hell is the matter? And the answer I get every single time is politics. They're warring factions within, literally – politics at the state level, but all the way down to the athletic department, and they just can't get their stuff together, and there's too much infighting, and it has really crippled the program. Sarkisian's a good coach. I expected good things out of him, but I don't know. Maybe he's like a Muschamp, right? Who's a coordinator than he is, the big guy, and so we'll see, but.
Doesn't that sound kind of similar though? Like under Mark Richt's tenure in Athens, that no one was really aligned, and Mark Richt didn't really take that that alpha male role. Whereas Kirby came in and said, "If you want me as head coach, here's what we're doing. Here's what we need to spend. Here's where we're going to run the program, and this is what I need to be successful in regards to updating the facilities. Building the indoor practice facility, new weight room, new meal plan." Expanding the coach's budget, the assistant coaching budgets, all those things. So I think that's dependent on the coach CEO to come in and say, you want us to win? Let me run the program how I want to run.
Yeah,
the
it
program.
is. But I think it's even more right with Texas, and like some of the examples I've heard is that you're just so one faction likes Sarkisian, and Sarkisian's their guy, and they get him. Well, the other board of trustees or big donors don't like him, and they're actively trying to undermine him and not give him those things that he needs. And at the first drop of some sort of screw up, look to cut the guy's legs out. And apparently that's just been going on really since Mac Brown was there, right? And so they're just a big old dumpster fire. And then you've got
Well, they got Arch Manning coming in to save the day, right?
But that's the next thing I was going to say is you got this Quinn Ewers kid who's the number one recruit, right? A year ago, whatever, and he's starting. So what's going to happen there, right? And look, the Mannings have been great, right? They're like legends. Will Arch be able to live up to that sort of legacy? So we'll see.
Well, boys, this was fun. Did a little recap. Did a little talking dogs. Anything else we need to hit before we sign off and say let's try to do it again next week?
Quick prediction for this weekend. One a dogs prediction and one other game prediction.
So the dogs line is what, 50?
Is there a line?
I think I saw
52.
52.
It's 52.
Yeah. It's one of these things where, I mean, like Laurence said, they pitched a perfect game, essentially.
Yeah.
I'm a baseball guy, a perfect game this week, 7 for 7 touchdowns. The last mop up, of course, they didn't do it. But how many possessions are they going to get?
Well,
about the same?
I'll take a shot. I'll give you 59-6 dogs. And I'll give you, since we're talking Alabama, Texas, I'll give you 45-17 UT. Oh, I'm sorry, 45-17 Alabama.
Ballsy pick. I think in Athens this weekend you're going to see a heavy dose of the run game. I think everybody will play. I think if we were to actually go to the game, unfortunately I can't go because I've got kids soccer again. But I think they may be pulling people out of section 117 to suit up and throw passes or hand the ball off towards the end of the game. I see something like 52-6. We're going to hang a big number, and the starters will be resting by halftime. And let's go. So for Alabama, Texas, I'm going to say 42 to 24.
Gotta get
Bama.
that.
Yeah, do your math and make sure you keep it under 20.
It's going to be that backdoor cover to get it in under the number.
Yeah, so I don't see Samford scoring. I think that Kirby. I mean, did you see him yelling at the guys with like 15 seconds left? I mean, I think he's on a mission to keep these points off the board. I think they throw a shutout. I think it's somewhere between 45 and 55. I think the line is probably right, depending upon how many possessions they get. I'll go Georgia 55, Samford 0. And I'm going to go Alabama in the 50s, and I'm going to go Texas in the teens. I think they blow them out. I think they're going to try to make a statement too. Look, Saban does not like Georgia getting the press they're getting right now, and he wants to make his
the rat poison.
Make his presence known next week. So I'll say 55 as well for Alabama and 17 for Texas.
I'd like to.
I see a recurring theme of me and Gans being smart. And Laurence trying to be cute, and we're always on the side of right.
Yeah,
and he's going to be going on an island trying to be the
listen. I nailed the pick for the dogs last week in terms of the point spread. So I'll take that.
I like the
I got that going.
Eddie, like if this guy goes, it's like remember Princess Bride with the poison. It's like, can I put it in this cup or that cup or this cup or that?
Don't you know never to mess with a Sicilian when death is on the line? I will say one last thing. Malachi Starks, that dude is a ball player. He had that one crazy pick, and he should have had another one on the field goal drive. It kind of went through his hands at the very end. That dude's a baller.
My last thing I'm going to say is Gans, I know you're headed to Napa this weekend. Please do us proud. Do Dog Nation proud. Call the dogs. Find Brock Bowers. Do it all you can. And we'll look forward to your recap next week when you get back.
Yeah, I'll loop you guys in from a tasting with your friends.
Yes. Tell our girls hello. All right, guys. Good times. Talk to y'all later. Signing off. Everybody, thanks for listening. Hope y'all enjoyed it. We'll try to do this every week. As always, keep chopping. Later.
Good night.